This is ODAT Chat, your instant connection to recovery and community, one day at a time. This podcast may contain strong language, sexual content, and spiritual truth. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to ODAT Chat. My name is Arlina, and I'll be your host. In case you didn't know, ODAT stands for One Day at a Time. If you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you don't miss out on upcoming episodes. You might be wondering about the purpose of the podcast, and what I can tell you is that besides wanting to clear up a lot of misconceptions about addiction and recovery, I also wanted to share the teachers, ideas, and exercises that have helped me on my own journey over the last 22 years that really fall outside the parameters of a 12-step group. If you'd like to suggest topics or leave feedback, you can visit odatchat.com or visit our Facebook page by the same name. And in this episode, I'll be talking with Gary. He's a really good friend. He also is my husband's other sponsor. He has two. We had a goal of talking about a few different things, but ended up talking about all different kinds of stuff. We talked about how he grew up on a ranch in Colorado and the escapades he had through his drinking and using. We also talked about things like sponsorship. He shared his experience having a brain aneurysm. He's really lucky to be alive, and how he also handled bouts of depression. So listen, Gary is one of the most chill guys I know. He's a dear friend. He does a ton of service. Everybody here knows him and loves him. And I really hope that this interview does him justice. So with that, please enjoy this episode with Gary. Gary, thank you so much for being willing to be on the podcast today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, this is round two. The first episode that you and I recorded had a little technical glitch, so I really appreciate your willingness to go for a round two.
It's my pleasure.
So today we're going to hit a few topics we discussed ahead of time that we'll talk about sponsorship and a 12-step program. We'll talk about, how to manage things like surgery and medication. I know you've had a few planned surgeries and you had one that was unexpected. So I feel like the approach to those two different scenarios are very different. And I know that depression is something that you have struggled with over the years, and I know it has hit my family, and I think many people struggle with it as well. So I think we have quite a few really good topics to cover. So I'm excited to talk to you about these things.
I'm excited to talk about them as well.
Thanks. That's
where the healing comes from.
That's where discussing it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So just so the listeners can get a little image in their mind of who you are, maybe you can tell me a little bit about, what do you do professionally?
Well, professionally, I've been in the steel business for over 30 years now, and as an owner, and now as an employee again. And I estimate construction projects. Okay,
yeah, that's a long time to be doing one thing.
It is.
Yeah. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Carbondale, Colorado. I was born in Grand Junction on the western slope, and lived in Vail, and then moved to Carbondale before I came to California.
And you were in and that's where I met you. How long were you in California for?
31 years.
And you have developed so many unique and priceless friendships out in this area. I know it was difficult to leave all this here, but so you've been back home in Colorado for how long now?
2.5 months.
2.5 months. Wow. Well, that was very brave. How's it going?
It's actually going pretty well. I've met a lot of good people. I was a little unsure what it was going to be like transitioning to this because the only sobriety I knew was California.
Right.
And I think we live in a unique spot there in San Jose as far as recovery goes. And coming out here, having spent all my sobriety there in the San Jose area, it was a little unnerving to go to a different meeting, have a format be so totally different, and I wasn't quite sure what I was going to think of it, but there's some good, solid recovery in this valley, and I'm really grateful to the people. Just were welcome me with open arms. And,
that's great.
I found a fellowship that is growing, and I see a lot of the things that I saw back there, which is the young people are real active and involved, and I think this is just a beautiful place to stay sober.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so good to hear. We moved once in sobriety, and we did not have a great experience. We went to a kind of a small town, so maybe we didn't give it long enough. But I'm glad to hear that things are going well already for you. And maybe we should just back up a little bit. What kind of a 12-step group are you involved with out there?
Alcoholics Anonymous.
Alcoholics Anonymous. And how long have you been sober?
I've been sober for 27 years.
That's like an entire lifetime. That's amazing.
Yeah, it seems like it sometimes. And then it seems sometimes like I don't know things. So
I know, right? Yeah, it's kind of a funny paradox. And so let's see, you've been sober for, was it just alcohol that you're recovering from? Or maybe you can give me a little background about how you started using, like how old were you when you started using, and what did you start using?
Well, I was 14 when I started using, and it did start with alcohol, but it grew into several different things. And I think I tried marijuana. I did that. I tried hallucinogenics. And one day, a friend of mine offered me some cocaine, and I stopped doing everything else.
Oh, really?
And cocaine just took over.
Did you stop drinking as well?
No.
Right. That's
I knew for the longest time that if I didn't drink, I wouldn't do coke. But I couldn't not take a drink. And then when I did, I wanted the high to last as long as it could, so I would enhance it by using cocaine, and I used both in excessive amounts.
Right. Yeah, in my experience, that's really the only way to do it.
Yeah, go big or go home. That's
exactly.
right.
Yeah, I think my disease revolves around more. So.
Well, I agree. That's mine as well.
Yeah, no, I get it. And how old were you did you say you were the first time you started drinking?
The first time I drank, I was 13.
Oh, that's pretty young. And what was the circumstance that you decided to try it?
I actually, I had made a batch of homemade wine once, and whether it actually fermented or not, I don't know. But when I drank it, it changed how I felt. And there was just something about it. The thought that it was alcohol gave me this idea that whether it was or was not, but it gave me the idea of that. And for some reason, I felt different, and I tried to look for other ways to make me feel that way. And living in a small town, it was fairly easy to get someone older to buy alcohol. And that happened a lot, and it happened with me often. Mm-hmm. I had a roommate whose aunt and uncle owned a liquor store here in Carbondale, and I started buying alcohol there when I was 17. And they never questioned my age.
They didn't.
No, and so I was able to buy alcohol there until I was legally able to go to bars.
Wow, that's amazing. It's interesting that they didn't even question it.
Well, yeah, it was kind of strange, but I was my best friend at the time happened to be their nephew, so. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of odd that they didn't know that he and I graduated from high school at the same time. We ran around together, so.
Yeah. Do you think maybe they just assumed that you were going to get your hands on it anyways, so they didn't want you to get in trouble, or?
I honestly don't know, because we both would have been in trouble had I gotten caught. And
Right.
someone asked me where it came from.
Right. Selling to a minor.
I think we both would have been in trouble.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. So sounds like you're off to the races early in life. And are you the only, tell me about your family a little bit. Are you the only alcoholic in the family?
Well, my father, I'll start back further than that. I had an uncle who was known to be an alcoholic, and that was on my father's side of the family. And my mother actually had a brother who died an alcoholic.
Oh, wow.
Those things were unknown to me at the time that I got sober, but my father told a story before he passed away that he came to in a hotel one night and decided that he had a drinking problem and he was going to stop. But he had the ism, and I didn't understand why he was the way he was until I got sober.
Oh, wow.
But my sister is also in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And she battles with depression as well. So her husband is severely OCDC, and it's a challenge for her. And just with her own issues, and then a husband that has that issue.
Right.
But she manages. She's been sober for a while, and God bless her. And other than that, I don't know anyone in the family who. I have a cousin who is. I just thought about that. She lives here in Colorado. So there is, I guess you could say there's a fair amount of alcoholism in the family.
That's a fair amount. We got, I know. Yeah. We got dad, uncle, sister, you. That's pretty significant. I'm actually the only one in my family, but I still tell people there's a lot of alcoholism in my family, but you're looking at it. I kind of took one for the team.
Yeah, I just always thought that odd of my father saying he used to say that he used to be an alcoholic, and and his actions were those of untreated alcoholism when I grew up, and I, like I said, I didn't recognize that until I'd been sober for a while.
Yeah,
and I developed some of the same traits in sobriety, and they were things that I despised in him, and I had to come to grips with the fact that not everything I got from my father was good, and there was a chance for me, if I was willing to do the work, that I would not be that man any longer. And luckily for me, something happened, and my prayers and my hopes turned out to be fruitful. And I don't believe that I'm the same man today that I was when I got sober.
Well, I would have to attest. I mean, I know you, so the stories that I hear and the experience that I have of who you are now, I would say that is definitely the case. I mean, I hear these crazy stories about Angry Gary, let's call him. And that is just not my experience. Your nickname here in the Valley is the nicest guy in AA. So that, I think that's a great testament to, what doing the work.
But I don't think it was my wife or kids who said that.
Well, I guess
the kids, I'm worried about. The wife, that's just the way it is.
Right. Well, I think if your experience of, whatever your initial experience is of somebody, I think it's hard to overcome that. If you have history with somebody, sometimes all you can see is the that initial experience. It's hard to change sometimes in somebody else's eyes. Sometimes they just keep pulling you back to that old standard. It's hard to be somebody different when their expectations of you are something different. You know what I mean? It's just...
Yeah, I do. And I think I'm just extremely fortunate and humbled by the fact that people call me something like that, when for the longest time there was absolutely no way I could live up to that in my eye.
Yeah.
But over time, I did become a person that I was proud to be. And I know that it only happened because I stayed sober and I had a loving God working in my life.
Absolutely. And you know what? You put in the work.
I did. I worked hard.
You did. You did. So how
I
old?
still do.
I know, me too. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And that's actually maybe a good segue to talk about sponsorship, because for me, working the steps was the way for the book talks about that complete psychic change, right? And, we talk about doing the work. And so sponsorship for me was the vehicle to do that. Was that your experience as well? Or how did you process the 12 steps?
Well, when I first got sober, and obviously going through a treatment facility, I fancied myself smart enough to not need someone to work with. And I stayed sober for about 8 months, and I was absolutely crazy and so discouraged and so unhappy. I really only had two choices, and that was either dive in or fall out. And I asked a man to help me, and he said yes. And, he took me through the book and, taught me that in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, or in life in general, there's really only two ways to go, and that's either forward or backward. There's no such thing as standing still. That the life is in motion constantly, and I'm either busy or I'm falling back into old behaviors. And he taught me that it was necessary for me to continually work with others, just as he had done with me. And the only way that I knew how to do that was the way that he showed me how to do the 12 steps. Mm-hmm. And I've met a lot of people who've helped me and realized that not every wrench is going to fit every nut. And, that depending on who the person is, it might take a different approach. Mm-hmm. And I've been fortunate to be able to experience those and have people teach me over the years that there's more than one way to stay sober.
Absolutely.
The 12 steps are the way, but there's more than one way to practice the 12 steps.
Right, right. And how did you select a sponsor?
I had started going to a men's meeting at the old Alana Club West on Minnesota Avenue, and a guy got called on one morning, and his name's Hank C. And when he got up to talk, it was obvious that he had something, because people paid attention. There wasn't at men's meetings. There's a lot of laughter and cutting up and everything that goes on, and that didn't happen when he was called on until he started talking. And then he had these incredible stories of experiences that he'd had, and it was almost like his volume increased the longer he talked. Mm-hmm. And to me, it almost appeared like he was floating in front of the room. And he just had a way about him that I could tell he was serious and that he was telling the truth. And I mustered up the courage to go meet with him. My initial meeting with him, I thought I could just do the 4-step with him and get it over with. But he made me start from the beginning and start over again. So it took me a couple of months to get where I was at.
Right. That's funny. That's so funny. I've never heard anyone say that, but I did the exact same thing. I found someone to sponsor me, and I asked her, the way I asked her to be my sponsor is I asked her if she would listen to my 4-step, and she told me she would be honored, but that we were going to start with step 1. So
it's exactly the same thing Hank told me.
Yeah. That's interesting. Okay, so you find Hank, you find the courage to talk to him, and he says yes, and you guys start with step 1. Did you meet him weekly, or did you just meet him whenever you were finished with your...
Hank, when I was finished with the work now, Hank sponsored a lot of people, and I believe that he still does. His health isn't that good. He's got cancer and he's sick, and but he sponsored a lot of guys, and the way he led me through the steps is that he gave me an assignment. He told me what to read. He did it the old-fashioned way. There wasn't a whole lot of writing or anything like that. When we did the first step, we talked about it, and we read through the book. But he let me meet with him once a month.
Okay.
And if I didn't have the work done, I was going to leave, because I was not to waste his time. And I still feel that way about the men that I sponsor. If we have made an appointment to get together and work steps, and they show up without a book or a 12 by 12, the meeting's pretty much over.
Yeah.
I'll meet with them socially, but if they want to do the work and they don't come prepared, I'm not going to take the time.
Right. Yeah. No, I feel the same way. It's like if you're serious about working the steps, you show up prepared. And do you have like a little, like when you work with others, do you offer like a little speech, or like how you sponsor? Do you like set expectations?
Oh, I do. I do tell them that we're going to go through the book. They're going to do what they're going to read what I ask them to. If they feel like writing something, they can write. But that's not what we're going to dwell on when we get together. We're going to dwell on the 12 steps the way they're laid out in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And then I meet with them. I'm not like Hank was. I think people are busy these days, and schedules are kind of wacky. And if someone's got the work done and they give me a call, I'll try and make myself available as soon as I can, because I think it's important not to get stalled or to put things off. And if I say no, I don't know what that's going to do to someone's psyche. So I always try and be available when I can be. Okay.
Do you have them call you every day, or go to meetings on a regular basis? Or?
I have them call me a lot. I don't tell people to call me every day. I don't think that's necessary. I went to enough meetings, and I still go to enough meetings now that I tell them where I'm going and tell them where I'd like to see them. And I think it's important that, for me, it was important when my sponsor told me to do that there were certain meetings he wanted to see me at, because that's where I was going to see him. And I'm the same way. I tell people where I am, and that I think it would be a good idea, because I pick those meetings because of what I get out of them, that they come to the same meetings I go to.
Right, because all meetings are not created equal. That's for sure.
No, they're not.
No, they're not. Do you have requirements based on, like if they... So let me just preface the question with, there's a lot of newcomers who will volunteer or get called on, and then they take the meeting hostage. And from my perspective, I feel like, this is something that they really should be discussing with their sponsor, So, if I get a girl who is new, like never been to meetings before, I'll suggest that they listen for at least the first 90 days. Yeah.
Well, it's funny, because when I got sober, and when I finally, I got sober at O'Connor Hospital, and there was a group of people, the Winchester Mystery Group, that brought meetings in on Tuesday nights, and there was an NA meeting on a Thursday night, and then we were taken out to outside meetings, but in the treatment center, it seemed like there were opportunities for, the people there to speak and feel like they were a part of. But when I went to outside meetings, the men's meeting at 400 West Campbell, you couldn't even speak until you had a year. You couldn't. Year. They didn't announce 30, 60, 90 days. You weren't recognized until you had a year.
Wow.
And the men in that room would certainly not be afraid of telling you that you had nothing to share.
Wow.
That what you needed to do was listen. And there's a part of me there's a part of me that agrees with that. I think that there's so much to be learned and so many things to be observed, that you find out. I think for me, I found out what I wanted out of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I found out that not everybody had what I wanted.
Right. Yeah, I feel like
I agree with you. I think it's better for a newcomer to speak one-on-one with their sponsor.
Right. Yeah.
Because I don't know, I've seen people get, when it was inappropriate, I've seen them be laughed at.
Oh.
And made to feel uncomfortable.
Right.
Not because anybody really meant to, but, that's what AA is about, is having fun. I think for me, that has a lot to do with it. If it wasn't that attraction, there wasn't that piece of it. I mean, if it was just all somber and everything, why would I want that? But I think sometimes new people don't know when to stop.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a minute to kind of get familiar with the culture. There's some unspoken rules. There's certain things we should probably not share at group level. Things that you should say for your sponsor, and I know what you're talking about. I have seen that same situation where a newcomer gets up and shares, and they're like inadvertently funny. And we laugh at the sickest things, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if they don't understand the context of where we're coming from, I could see how that would be hurtful, or they would feel weird about certain things, or, if you get shut down from somebody like from that's sitting in the audience, that can be really devastating and embarrassing, and people will leave. But
and that's why I think my sponsor, when I got sober, he told me that. He said, you have to remember, you don't have experience.
Yeah.
The experience comes with time.
Yeah.
And when we're asked to share our experience, strength, and hope, you have none of those yet.
You ain't got none. So be quiet.
The best thing for you to do is, be quiet.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. I'm not so dead set in my ways that I don't think that at certain times a newcomer shouldn't have opportunity to share. In fact, in a meeting that I regularly attend out here, so the meetings out here are volunteer. Mm-hmm. There's one meeting that I go to that's a tag meeting, but all the rest of them are volunteer meetings. Oh. The chairperson is a volunteer, except for one meeting I go to, the secretary actually asks someone to share. But one of the new guys in this meeting last week, they asked if there were any burning desires at the end of the meeting, and people start talking, and then he posed a question to the group. He said, "What does a burning desire mean? Is that just for people who have been around here for a while, or for new people who really have questions and wonder?" And that kind of made me stop in my tracks and think, if a new person is really has something that they need, and they don't have a sponsor yet, they don't know what this is all about, do they deserve that opportunity to ask that question? And I think that's absolutely a fact.
Yeah.
If they want to know, I think it's incumbent upon the group to give them the opportunity to ask that question if they don't know who else to ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been a different experience.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. There's sort of like the traditions of the groups, and there's sort of like this culture, like every meeting is different. While my personal opinion would be that maybe, you speak one-on-one with your sponsor, that you give yourself 90 days to sort of get acclimated with the vernacular and the traditions of the meetings and things like that. You do speak one-on-one with your sponsor. However, if somebody is in need and truly has something to say, we should, patience, love, and tolerance is our code, right? We should be a little patient and tolerant with the new people for sure. But I think, and not embarrass them, right? Just pull them aside afterward and go, and just, thank them for sharing. And hey, just in case, you might like to know that, typically when you're new, you work one-on-one with someone, I'm happy to help you, or I'm happy to direct you to somebody that you might feel more comfortable with. Or, you know what I mean? So we're not supposed to be rigid and abrasive, but at the same time, I think it's important to encourage the new people to just listen in the beginning. I
do too, but the other thing I was just thinking about is that I don't know how you felt, but I know how I felt when I was sponsorless and in AA. And there were times when I was dying inside, and I would have said something.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And I mean, if a person is in need that badly, I don't think there's any reason for anyone in the world to stop them from saying, "Hey, I'm in trouble."
Absolutely. So, yeah, there's definitely exceptions. I don't want anyone walking away with a heavy heart. You know, I don't want anyone to leave a meeting feeling worse than when they got there. That's for sure.
Well, I've done it a few times, but that's my fault.
Well, you know, we try to listen. Sometimes it just doesn't go well. That's just how it is.
Yeah, that's true. That's how it is.
That's just how it goes. And so that makes me think, you know, some of the other aspects about sponsorship. You know, if you're around long enough, you'll have sponsees relapse. And what do you do when, I'm sure you've had the two scenarios I'm going to suggest, which is one, they relapse, but then they come back to you and they say, you know, hey, I've relapsed, but I do want to be sober and I am willing to do the work. Will you continue to help me? That's scenario one. And then scenario two is they decide that they want to work with somebody else, which is really, you know, that's kind of, then you're kind of off the hook. But what happens when, I guess there is a third scenario where they come back, but the relationship becomes toxic and you start questioning whether you should sponsor that person or not. How do you handle those types of scenarios?
Well, let's start with the last example first.
Okay.
After being around for a while, I've been able to recognize when a relationship, which I think sponsorship is, it's a relationship between two people that should be intimate and full of trust. And if someone goes out and they come back to me, and I can tell that. Normally what I see is that the person who's standing in front of me asking me to work with them again is really not there. That weren't in the first place. If they had been and they were willing to make the phone calls and do what's to somebody first. Mm-hmm. I had a guy that I sponsored for a long time that would only act drunk. To me, that isn't healthy. It's not healthy for him, and it's not healthy for me.
I'm sorry, you cut out for 1 second. What did he do?
He repeatedly got drunk, but he wouldn't call me until after he was drunk.
Okay, got it.
So I told that guy that I thought I was of little help to him, and that he'd be better off finding someone he felt like he could reach out to, because it obviously wasn't me.
Right.
Had it been me, he would have been calling me before he drank. He didn't do that. Mm-hmm. I don't. We're hired, fired, none of that. There's no money exchanging hands. So how can I be firing someone, or they be firing me?
Yeah.
You know, this is freely given.
Right.
And so that's the person that just comes back that way. If I've got a person that goes out and relapses, and they tell me, and they will openly talk about what really happened, and what I was taught is if the answer that someone gives you for why they relapse is that they simply don't know, that's probably as true an answer as you can ever get.
Yeah.
Because of the alcohol being cunning, baffling, and powerful, why, given all this knowledge, would you do that? And for me, the answer is I simply wouldn't know.
Yeah.
There would be absolutely no excuse for it. Mm-hmm. But I never stopped working with a person like that. If they're willing to put in the effort and change some things about what they're doing and be honest with me, I'll continue to work with them.
Yeah.
But if they just want to drag me along so they can say they have a sponsor, I'm not the man for them.
Yeah. I would agree 100%.
But I'm not a guy that, I tell anybody that I work with, I will check on you from time to time, but the effort, I've done my work. Mm-hmm. The effort is on the new person. If they want help, they'll call and ask.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't chase anybody either.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm feeling like I have to chase somebody, which I don't have the energy for it.
Well, right. That's right. I mean, I've got enough trouble chasing myself. I'd possibly think of how I could do that.
Yeah, I'm high maintenance enough. I don't need somebody else to keep track of.
No. And, I was fortunate enough with my sponsor that, he told me how to do the steps and I agreed to do them. And it's because I was beat. Right. I tried everything, drinking and not drinking. Mm-hmm. And my life wasn't getting any better.
Right.
So I was desperate. I was desperate when I went and talked to them.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll do it.
But, relapse is I hate to say this because I'm not so sure that I believe it. I think recovery is recovery. I don't think relapse is part of recovery. And maybe that's short-sighted of me. And maybe it's because I got sober and stayed sober.
So the first time you went to rehab, that was it? You never drank after that?
It.
Wow.
Never drank again.
That's amazing.
Well, there's something, I wasn't exactly the best. I think rehab is a lot about learning a lot about yourself and about the program. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say that I was a good student. I'd say far from that. One of my defenses has always been humor. If things got too close or too personal, I would try and make people laugh so that we could change the course of the conversation. Mm-hmm. In rehab, they wouldn't let me do that, and it was a tough time. Yeah. But it changed my life. There was a man in there who pulled me aside and explained some things to me in a loving way that made sense, and I decided that I needed to pay attention. And rather than be the center of attention, I needed to be a fly on the wall. Mm-hmm. Just grasp as much knowledge and help as I possibly could for the next few days that I was going to be there. Because he told me I was dying, and I believed him.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the truth, too.
Absolutely. That's why I went.
Listen, we don't go to rehab for a vacation.
Yeah. It's funny, after a few days not drinking, I kind of forgot about all the misery.
Yeah, how quickly we forget, right? We have good forgetters.
That's right. It's built in.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's amazing. Okay, so I have a very similar experience to that as far as sponsorship goes. And I think, and don't you sort of have like sort of that gut check, like from relationship to relationship whether it's working or not, and if it's not working, it's okay to move on.
And I have done that too, Arlina. I've seen guys who've struggled, and when they get drunk, they call me again, and when it's the third or fourth time, I ask them a pretty good question: why in the world they would call me? Mm-hmm. Because whatever we've been doing as a sponsor and sponsee isn't working, because they're not getting it, whatever it is, and I encourage them to find someone that they really feel like they can connect with, because without that connection, in the beginning, it's impossible. Mm-hmm. There's no way to develop any trust, and if you can't trust that person that you're working with, why would you tell them anything?
I agree. Yeah, I think and once you break trust, it's very hard to move on from that. I've had sponsees who are dishonest for like an extended period of time. And it's difficult for me to continue investing in a relationship, because then I feel like they're wasting my time. And then I think it's just better for both of us. If something's not, if it's not working for me, it's not going to be working for them, or vice versa. Something's fundamentally not right. So it's okay to move on.
Absolutely. And I encourage them to find someone that they want to work with. Yeah. And I wish them the best.
Yes.
Because my only hope in the first place was that they found sobriety as fulfilling as I did.
Right.
And I would be a fool to think that I'm the perfect match for every man I meet in Alcoholics Anonymous, because it's just not the case.
Exactly. And I find that when it stops being nourishing for me, like I'm in service because I need to be, I need to be able to give it away to keep it. And if there's a dysfunction within the relationship and I'm not getting nourished by it, that is my sign that it's not helping them. So
absolutely.
And I don't always need to, figure out why it's not working. Sometimes it's just, this isn't a good fit. There are many, many people who are available and willing and happy to help. And it's time for them to find someone else. But I got to say, when it is working, when a sponsor-sponsee relationship is working, when I'm sponsoring someone or when I find the right sponsor, it is magical. It is so magical.
I agree.
Yeah, because then I'm able to change, and I feel gratitude towards the person who's helping me. I feel gratitude towards the person who was allowing me to help, because then I'm part of
I feel the same.
Right? Doesn't it feel magical?
It does, and I think for me one of the biggest roadblocks in the beginning for me was thinking that I had all the knowledge I need. And, it's that old saying, the longer I'm here, the less I know. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that I heard that, because I try and pay attention to everyone who speaks or everyone I'm working with, mm-hmm. because some amazing things get said that have never crossed my mind.
Right. Yeah.
And there are different perspectives that I do not want to close my mind off to. Mm-hmm. It's the whole contempt prior to investigation idea.
Oh, yeah, brilliant. I am so grateful that people talk about that. It really does sort of level set your thinking and helps you to stay open-minded.
It sure does.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Gosh, there's so much to talk about with sponsorship, but I did, and we have about 15 minutes left, and I think it's so important. I wanted to ask you about your experience regarding surgery and medication, because I know you've had some very amazing experiences. I know. Listen, I don't know how to describe it. Mike's like standing from the outside. I know. You already know what I'm going to talk about. You had an aneurysm, and it was unexpected, and from the outside looking in, like, listen, there are certain lessons I would never sign up for, but that when it's over, when I'm on the other side, I'm grateful that I've had them. And I witnessed what happened to you. I didn't witness your aneurysm, but I witnessed your experience from beginning to end, because I'm in your orbit. And I was amazed. It was such a painful time, but at the same time, some miracles happened out of that. Some really amazing, inspiring things happened. But so that was like an unexpected situation. But medication and surgery are like, medication is something that people relapse over frequently. So I just thought maybe you could share some of your stories regarding, when you had your aneurysm and that whole unexpected. I know you had to get pain medication, and that was really challenging. And I know you've had some knee surgeries and things like that. So maybe you could just share a little bit about, some of those different kinds of experiences and how you got through those and stayed sober.
Well, the first surgery I ever had was on my knee, and it was an open surgery. It was before arthroscopic surgery was being done, mm-hmm. and that was a nasty experience, and because that the surgeon made some mistakes.
Oh, no.
I ended up with an infection, had to have another operation 10 days later, and he didn't get the wound cleaned out, and I had to have another operation, and it had to heal from the inside out.
Oh, that's awful.
So I was, and it was pretty bad. The amazing thing about that surgery is the first one hurt, but when he opened the wound and let the infection get out, I didn't have any pain.
Oh, that's really bizarre.
Later on, surgeries are more significant. As we were speaking earlier, I've had 11 knee surgeries. I've had a shoulder surgery. I've had broken bones, and of course the brain injury that you were speaking of. I think the worst was when I had my knee replaced, and that one caught me off guard.
What was
the other surgery?
What was the worst one?
The open knee replacement that I had done.
Okay. The open knee one. Okay. Yeah, that sounds awful.
Yeah, so I'd had that's all right. I'd had other knee surgeries where I was prescribed Percocets, various different painkillers, and the first thing that I did every time was I would tell my sponsor what was given, and Hank always pointed out to me that they were given to me for a reason, not to be abused, but they were to ease the pain, and I was only to take them as long as I needed them and to get off them as soon as I could. And fortunately for me, I'd had so many things happen to me since I was a kid, riding in rodeos and just being a boy, that I have a pretty decent tolerance for pain.
Wow.
So I was able to get off those drugs fairly quickly. But he always told me that if I ever thought I was going to have a problem with them, to give them to him. And he would be my pharmacist.
Okay, he would dole out the pain meds.
And yeah, exactly. And rather than me being in charge, because I have a sick mind,
yes,
that I was to let him know when I absolutely did it. And I've done that with coworkers and sponsees.
Right, you've
the worst of is, I've taken their medication from them, and had them ask me so that they weren't overusing it. It was only being taken as prescribed, and I think that's important for us, that they were prescribed for a reason.
Right.
I think doctors are educated enough and smart enough to know that the things that they do are not always going to be pleasant. And we're doing those things for a reason.
Right.
And a specific reason, and decide that if one is good, two is better, then we shouldn't be in charge.
Yeah, and I didn't want myself or the girls I sponsor to feel like they should be making those decisions while they're high. It's like, if I'm on pain medications, I'm high. I do not want my loaded brain to have to decide whether I should take another one or not. It's better that somebody who is in their right mind and not on drugs to decide.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
The worst for me was that when I had my knee replaced in Santa Cruz, and for me, that was the most painful experience I've ever had.
Wow.
And what I saw, what happened to me, is that they gave me a morphine pump.
Uh-oh.
And obviously it would only operate at certain times and in certain intervals. But I started looking forward to that time. And when I got out of the hospital and got off that, it was almost like I went through withdrawals.
Oh, for sure.
And I was never able to take it in any other manner. And those are the kinds of drugs that I shied away from. I didn't like those numb me out to sleep kind of things. I like the things that make these experiences last longer.
Right.
And that's not what this was. And to me, it showed me that I'm an alcoholic and an addict
Yeah, for sure.
And I've got to be very careful about what I do.
Yeah.
Why that happened and then that was, I guess one of the tougher things about that was that, it was just 2 months later that I had the brain aneurysm.
Oh my goodness, that was 2 months later.
I'm still getting over the knee surgery when this happens in Hawaii, and that one was just sudden. I don't think I ever felt pain.
So let me just walk through this for a second, because all I know is like I got a phone call. Oh my God, something happened to Gary. So you were on vacation in Hawaii 2 months after your knee surgery. And how long had you been in Hawaii when you had your aneurysm?
1 day.
Do you think it was related to the flight or the surgery? Like, did you throw a blood clot? Do they know what caused it?
Well, what they found was a massive blood called an AVM, venous malformation. Mm-hmm. It's a big ball of blood vessels that wrap themselves around one of the arteries in my brain. Mm-hmm. And it squeezed on it until it burst. So when I look at the fact that I was on the ground in Hawaii, less than 14 hours after getting off an airplane, that could have happened to me in the air.
It could have, yeah.
And had that happened to me in the air, I would not have survived.
Oh, that's so crazy. So you have
I think God put me in a place to have that happen, Arlina, that I had no distractions about getting well. I wasn't at home. I wasn't at work. I didn't have anything to think about but getting better.
Right.
And if it was going to happen, what a better place to rehab than Hawaii.
Yeah. Listen, if it's going to happen, choose Hawaii.
Yeah, that's right.
So, when did you just wake up, or did you know you were having an aneurysm, or that something was wrong,
No.
Or did you just wake up in a hospital one day?
Well, I went blind. That I do, but I couldn't see anything.
Oh my God!
And then I blacked out. And then I woke up in Queens. I was on the Big Island in Kona when it happened, and I woke up in Honolulu.
Oh my goodness! How many days was it? Like the next day, or how much time did you lose?
I think I lost a couple of days because some people from San Jose had been able to fly there. They were there when I woke up.
Oh, Dave flew out, right?
Yeah, Dave was there. One of my daughters was there. My father-in-law was there. My brother and sister-in-law were there.
Wow.
They had all made it down there by then, and but I couldn't talk and I couldn't walk, and those were the things that were frustrating. I think more so than I just don't remember any pain with that, because it was I don't know how much pain your brain actually feels. But and I know that they were giving me stuff for pain, but it didn't seem to be a focus to me. It wasn't something that I dwelt on and felt. And even as though that was the worst surgery I've ever been through, it certainly wasn't the most painful.
Oh, interesting. So they didn't. So as far as your sobriety and pain management went, it doesn't sound like the medication wasn't a big factor for you in that particular experience?
No, not in this one. The main concern in this one was blood clots, obviously.
Right.
And to keep me from having any seizures as a result of the brain injury.
Okay.
Because I did end up with those later.
You ended up with having seizures later?
Yeah, I did. I was given some medication after the surgery, and I was with it, and I just felt off, like I wasn't present. And I ran out of one of the medications, and all of a sudden I felt really good. So I didn't think I needed it anymore. And the doctor convinced me I needed to take it for at least another month. So I didn't. I quit. Unbeknownst to me, that was what was keeping me from having seizures.
Oh,
And
shoot.
about a year and a half later, I had one.
A year and a half later?
I had a funny aura kind of in my eye, and I didn't know what it was. My head felt a little funny, but it was just like these psychedelic colors, in my eye. And I was talking to Jill on the phone, and she was coming to visit me. We were married, and I told her I didn't feel good. I was going to sit down, and by the time she got to my house, I couldn't talk.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I got my son up, and I don't remember getting to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And they gave me a CT scan and an MRI, and when they finished with those, I seized. Then I had a seizure.
Oh, and then you had a seizure.
Yeah.
Poor Gary, you've been through the ringer.
Well, you know what? I think I don't want to say it was a result of all those years I got away with everything, because I don't think that happens at all. I don't think God is punishing by any stretch of the imagination.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of like I was fortunate. If something was going to happen, it seemed like I was in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. No, it's definitely some higher power was looking out for you, that's for sure.
I did believe that, yeah. And then, the surgeon, even in Hawaii, told me that he couldn't explain it, how I survived.
Really?
And I have a pretty good idea.
Yeah. You are not done here. You have more work to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
I have some, and I haven't learned enough yet. I still have a long ways to go.
Yeah. Well, listen, you're a vital part of the community, and whether your lessons are learning or teaching, God is not done with you yet, and for that I'm grateful.
Yeah, me too.
Well, listen, we just have a few more minutes left in the podcast, and listen, there's many things we could continue talking about, but maybe we'll have to save that for another episode. But typically what we do to wrap up the podcast is, it's called ODAT, one day at a time. Maybe you can sort of share with us how you stay sober one day at a time, whether it's a daily routine or practice, or if you have a weekly schedule of that you like to follow that helps you stay sober. How do you stay sober one day at a time?
Well, for a long time I was in the practice of sitting quietly and meditating every morning, and that's something that I'm fortunate enough now to be able to do. I typically do it when I get in my office. I close the door. I have a meditation book or several other, they may not be approved literature, but I have them. And I find something that in any reading, there's always something that will stick out, whether it's a word or a phrase. Mm. And I just try and dwell on that for, whatever. And I mean, I realize that early in meditation, it's really hard to be quiet for that long. So if all I get is 5 minutes and the phone rings, I got 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I try and stay connected with the people around me, and I try to go to meetings. I'm in service. I've got 3 guys that I sponsor now here, and I still stay in contact to try to with a lot of the men back in California.
Yeah.
And because that. I think one of the things for me was that there's one thing about California that'll never be taken from me, and that's over there. Mm-hmm. And it may not be my original home, but it's my AA home.
Yeah.
And I try and think about the people every day that have helped me, whether that's by listening to me or asking me to help them. Mm-hmm. And I try and talk to one of those people every day.
You're just staying connected.
Just try and stay connected. The minute that I don't start talking about what's going on with me, then I'm going to be in trouble. And, we talked a little bit about depression earlier, and it doesn't matter how long you've been sober. For me, it didn't, because depression struck me about 22 years, and it hit me hard.
Yeah.
And the problem for me, having been sober for a while, is the same as it is with anyone, I think, with that particular problem, is that it tells you that two things: either there's really something wrong with you, or it's not that bad.
Right.
And then you can figure it out yourself. And I thought I could figure it out myself, and the reality was I could not do that. I had to ask for help.
Yeah. Did you get outside help, like therapy? Did you go to therapy?
I did. And I think, the 12 steps and Alcoholics Anonymous, or whatever program it is a great help. I think if without that, I wouldn't have had the courage to ask somebody for help.
Right.
But my history has been one of depression in the past.
Right.
At 6 years sober, I was diagnosed as being depressed.
Oh, at how much sober?
I was 6 years sober.
6 years sober. Okay. You were diagnosed with depression?
When I was with depression the first time, yeah.
Okay.
And, it's if I'm active and doing the things that I'm supposed to do, and don't let outside problems creep into my serenity. I had some issues come up with a business I was involved in, and I didn't think I got a fair shake. And I got angry, and then I got depressed, and I could not get out of it. I knew what the problem was, and I couldn't get out of it. And I think that's one of the worst things about depression, is knowing it and not knowing what to do.
Right.
And the answer is simple. Tell somebody. Call your sponsor.
Yeah.
But for some reason, those thoughts never crossed my mind.
It never crossed your mind to share?
To ask for help, or to tell my sponsor, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how addiction and isolation and depression, that all goes hand in hand, right? And
it does.
It does seem to be the solution is to, stay in, like all the things that we hear, right? If I want to isolate, that's a red flag for me to do the opposite, right? I need to reach out to somebody else, let somebody know how I'm feeling, but also try to get involved in somebody else's life, find out what's going on, and, like try to get outside myself and be of service. Those seem to be
absolutely.
Those seem to, and physical exercise actually helps with that as well. So it's just interesting. It's easier to practice and get in the habit when you're feeling healthy, like mentally healthy, physically healthy. And then so that when it comes up, then it's sort of like a natural thing to do, to continue to ask for help and be of service to others.
Well, I think it's interesting that you said that, because I belonged to a gym for years and years, and I would drive to the gym, get out of my car, get my gym bag, look at the front of the building, put the bag back in the car, and drive off.
Did you really? You'd make it all the way to the gym?
Yeah, I did. I made it all the way there, and I did not make it in the door.
You just could not make it in.
No, and then I stopped talking to my sponsor.
Uh-oh.
I mean, there were all signs that I was going sideways. I was going to meetings late and leaving early. And that's not the way I do.
Yeah.
I go early and I stay and talk to people, but I stopped doing that. And it had a grip on me for about 3 years.
3 years?
It was miserable. Yeah, it was miserable.
Wow, that's brutal. And so it was after the 3-year period you started seeking outside help?
Yeah. And it took a serious event to make me do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought I was going to lose a marriage, and I lost the marriage, but I saved my mind.
Right. You ended up saving your mind.
Yeah.
Wow. And so where are you at today? You're in a Where do things stand for you today? Do you feel solid? It sounds like things are going well in Colorado.
Well, it's like we were talking a little bit before. It's really rough, here where I live, and it's been warm. So the snow on the mountains isn't too good. But I just came back from fishing when you called me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm standing in a river, doing something I absolutely love, and is so peaceful and spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't imagine any other way to live. And so I'm here where literally I walk out my door to the river.
That's amazing.
And I mean, a more spiritual place for me to be in right now, I couldn't imagine. It was really hard. It was really hard for me the decision to move was easy. The physical move was hard.
Right.
But I knew that it was a place that I wanted to come back to.
Mm-hmm.
And this last week, a couple of ghosts have come up for me.
Oh, really?
That I didn't expect. And so the first thing I did was go to a meeting, and I told somebody.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only way. I thought I was past all that stuff here, but it's impossible.
Right.
I did most of my damage in my life in this valley.
Wow.
And things are going to come up. That's just the way it's going to be. But if I keep doing what I've done for a few years now, and I don't get stuck in that spot where I know how to handle this, I'll be just fine.
Yeah.
But I just to walk outside with a fishing pole. It's fishing, not catching, right? Because I'm not doing too good. On the other part.
Not the catching part.
The catching is a little harder. The fishing's easy. But just the sound of the water and the rhythm of that fly rod. It's like an active meditation for me, and I can do that all the time.
Oh, that's a beautiful thing.
It is. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, but it sounds like it's...
But I do...
Go ahead.
I do miss everyone there.
Oh, you're missed for sure.
It's my AA family, and it always will be.
Absolutely. Yeah, your family will always be here. And listen, we're all excited that we have a place in Colorado to come visit.
Should be. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, so thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew it had come to some good use.
Right? No, that's great. That's great. Well, listen, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. I really feel like it's so important to share our experiences around these things so that others can benefit. And, I certainly got so much out of our conversation, and I love you dearly, and I look forward to speaking to you again.
I love you too, Arlina, and thank you for asking me to do this.
Great.
It feels good.
Yeah, great. Well, listen, you have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to ODAT Chat. Please visit odatchat.com for more episodes, to leave feedback or suggest topics and guests. Until next time.